This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Today's discussion is Morgan Stanley's CEO. Morgan Stanley's CEO references the Rolling Stones. I think in what Jim Gorman did in talking about the Rolling Stones, he referenced a song, and bear with me as we get to the point in this. He essentially said there's a great Rolling Stones song, and of course, if you're my generation, you're familiar with this. And the song essentially goes, and I will not sing it, you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you can get what you need. And what he was referencing was the fact that they wanted to have great revenues, great earnings, and great investment banking revenues. But the deal climate is so bad that they couldn't get what they wanted, which was great investment banking revenues. And those investment banking revenues are quite profitable. And the investment banking revenues were down for them in the first quarter, 24%. What also happened was the profits were down 19%, revenues were only down 2%. And what Jim Gorman essentially said was that, look, we can't get what we wanted, which is a great quarter, but we did okay. We still made $3 billion. Morgan Stanley was still pretty resilient. So we did get what we need. So I absolutely loved his reference to the Rolling Stones and the notion of you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need, which is so true in so many things. So rather than looking at the glass as half empty, he looks at it and says, look, this is pretty good, given how bad the macro climate is. And I think it's a brilliant concept to sort of look at and think about as you work through business in more challenging times. So kudos to Jim Gorman, who really gets our business shout out of the day. But this podcast is titled, Morgan Stanley references the Rolling Stones. But the concept, he really deserves a shout out for putting that great context on the situation. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity Business Podcast. Again, if you're the first person to text Becker Private Equity at 773-766-5322 regarding this podcast, we will send you a $50 Amazon gift certificate. Thank you so much for joining us.